You're listening to On the Road, a law enforcement journey. Hear from those currently on the force while getting an insider view from what it takes to become a law enforcement officer.
Welcome to episode number 7 of On the Road, a law enforcement journey. So this week is the end of week 2 at the academy, and it was quite a interesting week for myself. Probably sound a little bit different. I call it a weekend of emotions last week, and it was exciting because finished our first week at the academy, felt good about everything. And as the weekend went on, unfortunately, my wife started feeling under the weather. Um, she tested positive for COVID, so we isolated her. And then my son was also sick, so I was trying to take care of him while letting my wife recover because she was hit pretty bad by it. So we were trying to do the best to make sure we stay isolated, so I can at least try to stay as healthy as can be, so can still attend the academy. That's very hard to do, but we were going to try it anyways. So upon the stress of our son being sick, wife being sick, and then what's going to happen now at the academy, because I have to notify um, everybody about that I'm in close contact and what are the next steps. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to attend academy in person because of being in close contact. So the protocol would have been 5 days of isolation. And as long as there's no symptoms, I come back, I wear a mask for 5 days, which is perfectly fine. So that was going to be the plan, starting on Sunday. So fortunately for me, things were able to be hooked up via Zoom to allow me to still participate in training and still attend all of our classes virtually. And it was on Monday, which I'll get more into our week 2 recap. But Monday, I woke up, I felt for the most part great. I guess the big thing that should have kind of threw me for a loop was that I woke up and my hip flexors, my back, everything just hurt. But I attribute it to sleeping on the futon with my son because he wouldn't go to sleep. I mean, he didn't have a fever, but he was warm, and he was super crummy because, I mean, when you got something like that and he's only 1.5, he can't communicate really how he feels. So it was a long nights of laying on a futon with him while trying to get him to go to sleep. So I attributed my aches and pains to that. Other than that, I felt really great. Jumped on the Zoom calls for our training, and in the afternoon we ended up having firearms. I was going through all the stuff with the rest of the class, and I felt this headache start coming on. And I'm in my son's bedroom and feel a chill start coming, and I was like, maybe it's just cold in here. So I put our little portable heater on, and that wasn't doing a trick. Like, I literally had my legs right up against the darn heater, and my pants were super hot to touch, but I was still shaking. So dinner break came for the academy, and went and got tested, and sure as shit tested positive. So of course had to notify our director and stuff like that. So the protocol for that, similar to close contact, but now my 5-day isolation had to restart all over again. And I apologize. I'm doing this live right now. I don't know if anybody's going to jump on or not, but my son's now just waking up, so I'm probably going to have to turn this into a not live session so I can edit this as needed. But I'm going to continue rolling on as long as it seems fine. But anyways, got that all situated, and then as my wife my wife comes out, and she's just like, "So you want some more stress in your life?" And I'm just like, "What do you mean? You got more stress to add?" And she just nods her head, "Yeah." And then it's like, "What is it?" Oh, found out we're pregnant with kid number 2. So it was a crazy weekend, and we couldn't really enjoy the celebrating being pregnant again because all 3 of us were sick. Now to say for the most part, we're all pretty much back to 100%. There's a little bit more of the slight cough and stuff, getting rid of the congestion and stuff like that. But I feel pretty great. I think I started feeling it Monday. Tuesday I was wiped. Wednesday I was wiped, and then Thursday I started feeling really good again. So it was 2 days of feeling like complete crap, but I feel like I'm good to go, and I'm looking forward to getting back to regular next week. So make sure I didn't miss anything on my notes here. Um, I can't say anything about week 2 from the physical training aspect, what it was like to go with everybody else with our drill sergeant stuff, because that's the only thing I was not a part of was our physical training sessions. I'm assuming though, just like anything else, it's progressing in the intensity and the amount of work, and more is being expected out of you because you're not day one there anymore, which only makes sense. I was going to have another recruit on here, but obviously with my absence at the academy, I didn't have the time to try to work that out. So hopefully next weekend I can get that, so we can have somebody else on here talk about why they're at the academy, what their previous experience was, or if they did anything else. So week 2, just a general synopsis. It was a lot more in depth with criminal law, scenario training, firearms, and subject control, which, if you think about it, those are some pretty big things to make sure they are hit home and nailed down before you really get into anything else. Week 2 is also five training days. So here's a recap. I know this seems kind of sporadic, so I'm sorry about that. Week 2, so Monday was firearms and witness interview techniques. A lot of the stuff was same thing I did in the military, but it's just been a long time since I've done it, so I'm going to be rusty at it, and I'm probably going to need a lot of negative feedback to get rid of a lot of maybe things that aren't an efficient way to do things anymore. But watching everybody else go through it and listening to the classes and stuff, I feel like just getting in there practicing will make you better. And that's with anything. Practice doesn't make perfect, but it can make close to perfect. Just never exists. So firearms was a lot of basic holstering drills, learning about the sidearm and shotgun, which is very important. And I'm glad that's being stressed, is understanding how a firearm works, and not just your pistol, but like the AR or the long rifle and then your shotgun. But how to properly clear them and load them and check for safety. All of that stuff's so important because you don't want negligence to be the reason that you lose your job or somebody gets hurt over something that could have easily been prevented. I love the basic holstering stuff. This was stuff I was able to participate in at home with my own duty belt and stuff like that. It's quote unquote, I don't want to say building muscle memory, because any of us in the strength and conditioning field hate that term muscle memory, but in the military and the tactical side of things, that term is used a lot, and that's what it is. I guess the proper way is recruitment patterns, or proprioception, being aware of where your body is in space and time. So getting to know where your holster is, so when you go through your whatever release you have for the holster, you know where it is, and you can already be drawn on it with a high grip and be able to pull that out smoothly. And I'm glad that that's being emphasized to start, and with the whole process of do it slow and then pick up speed as we go. Rather do it right and slow 100 times before doing it once and then trying to speed through it, and then you're just building more bad file folders, and you're just making bad habits for yourself to try to fix later. Interviewing techniques, just covering the basics, and everybody knows these when you're talking to somebody. The W's, the who, what, where, why, when, and how. But it's very easy to forget to include some of those things when you haven't done it a while, or if you're nervous, if it's your first time doing it, even if you're just going through a scenario with your buddies in the academy and stuff like that. If you've never done it, it can still be stressful, because you don't want to look like crap. No one likes to fail, but at the same time, when you get fed to the wolves like this, failure was where you're going to learn the most. So Why didn't you get this person's, number? Oh crap, yeah, that would have been important. Something like that. I mean, you're not going to forget it again. So being thrown to the wolves is not always a bad thing. It's a great learning experience and a great learning tool. That's if you're willing to have the open mind to view it that way. Tuesday was more firearms, primarily around the AR or M4. I wasn't there, so it was references M4 quite a few times, but AR M4 similar, same thing. And we had more about introductions to lean training, so law enforcement information network, and then more criminal law. Now, criminal law is is it's a fun class. I love it. It's a very engaging class. It's easy. Our instructor makes it very relatable. The hardest thing is just there's so many laws and trying to remember them and how they differentiate from of being charged in a first compared to like a third offense, stuff like that. But anybody who's been experienced in law enforcement, so people who already have that background, if they're listening to this, they're probably, oh yeah, that's easy. Just like anything, when you've been in it for a long time, it becomes easy. You know how to categorize those to make them easy to remember. I'm just going through that right now where I'm just like, holy crap, this is a lot. But I'll get it figured out. So will my colleagues and my partners. Wednesday was a lot of subject control, primarily around the basics of straight arm takedown and shoulder takedown, uh, which unfortunately for me, I wasn't able to participate in. So trying to follow along with Zoom was really hard because there's a difference between watching somebody do it and then trying to do it hands on yourself, because your grip might be different, or you might be seeing somebody do it one way, or because on a computer screen, it's hard to see all the details compared to when you're there in person. And instructor goes, hand goes here, rotate like this. Okay, well that makes sense. I can put a feel to it, and I know exactly what they're talking about. But when I'm watching it on a computer, I'm going, okay, I guess I know what they're doing. And yes, I was able to ask questions, and instructors were able to clarify. But again, watching compared to doing is very different. I'm a learn by doing type of person as well. But fortunately, I'm going to get caught up to speed on that. I'll hit about that a little bit later. Deadly force and a more class on deadly force and more on witness interviews. Deadly force is so important, especially in today's world. It is a tough position to be put in because it is, in some aspects, a damned if you do, damned if you don't. You don't want to lose your own life or have something bad happen to your partner because you were afraid to act accordingly because of fear of doing something wrong. But you have to trust in your training, trust in the process, and that you were shown what to do, and be confident that you know what to do. And if you don't know what you're doing, this probably ain't the best field to be in. Again, it's easy for me to say right now. I'm only in week 2, but I have done, I have 5 years as a military police officer background. It's just been a super long time for me. Thursday was more subject control, so adding more onto the takedowns, doing handcuff techniques and search techniques, more lean training, and then criminal law again. Friday was all speed measurements, so learning the science and how to use LiDAR and then the radar systems, which was very interesting. So I'm looking forward to that. A lot of good training. It's a lot of information overload, as one of the instructors said. It's like trying to suck water through a fire hose. So you're getting blasted with so much. But you'll know, I can't say you. I'll learn how to decipher that and be able to make it go. So big thing is, how is I still be able to be involved with COVID? And I have to go back to our great director that we have and our instructors who allowed me to attend via Zoom. If I wasn't allowed to do Zoom training, it probably would have been quite a nightmare on my end to have to try to make up an entire week's worth of lecture and practical stuff. So right now I just got to make up some of the hands-on stuff. But again, thanks to our great instructors that we got, that's not going to be an issue. All my equipment. So one of the benefits of taking your stuff home at the end of the academy at the week is if something like this happens, you have all of your stuff. So fortunately, I had all of my books, I had my duty belt, I had my uniform, all that stuff. So I was able to participate when I had to, or when I was able to. The hardest thing is sitting in front of a computer. That was the hardest thing, but at least I didn't miss any classes. It was literally about 9 o'clock in the morning until 7:30 every night, being glued in front of the computer. That is a very, very hard thing to do. It's okay, it's, I don't want to say distractions or anything like that, but it is when you're at the academy and all that stuff. You're got the instructor in front of you. You got all the PowerPoints directly in front of you. Um, there's no lag, so my computer glitched a couple of times. So it might be sometimes I didn't hear information, so I didn't get to record it properly. Again, I'm not worried about that because I can clarify any questions I got when I get back to the academy on Monday. My favorite block of instruction so far. I don't have a favorite. I love all of the training blocks because everything we're learning applies to the job, whether it be small or in a large aspect as a police officer. And it's all very new and fresh to me after spending so long in the fitness and strength and conditioning industry. It is exciting. So I'm loving learning new things or relearning some things I haven't went over in many, many years. Again, it also helps to have instructors who are passionate about setting recruits up for success afterwards. They don't want to be the ones who sent out recruits that weren't ready for the job out on the road. So they are very passionate about what they do and they have a high standard. And I'm glad to see that. And I look forward to learning that high standard and being a part of that. So I want to go a little bit on this, how this all kind of correlates with these first couple of weeks with so much on subject control, firearms, and criminal law, interviewing, all those tactics. It comes back to my favorite topics is the community engagement, being engaged with the public. All right. And when it comes to use of force or controlling a subject, it doesn't mean you go to whatever means necessary to get it done. I mean, you have to work with the public. All right. You have so many tools. All these are just tools. You don't want pulling out a pistol to be your go-to every time when you can literally use your voice to de-escalate a situation. Obviously, if that's not working, then you take the next steps, however you've been trained to, which is why you need to train on everything pretty consistently so you are proficient and confident in all of your aspects of being engaged with the community. So I'm kind of breaking the stuff into segments a little bit now. So each week we'll go through the recap. If I have somebody on here, I'll go through their experience and what they're thinking so far, for example. But then we'll have like a practical learning. And then since fitness is my big thing, I'll have a fitness, either fitness tip or more on fitness training at the end of the podcast to help anybody else. So for a practical learning segment here, it's going to be more on witness interviews, just from what I've seen, and also relating back to my time in the military as a police officer. Talking to people, the better you get at it, the easier it becomes, and the more information you're going to be able to pull from people. So if you're a very timid, soft-spoken person, be the one volunteering to do extra scenarios or take lead because it's going to make you better. If you're the one standing in the background and letting those very proactive and vocal people be the ones in leadership positions all the time, well, you're not setting yourself up for failure. And I know there's some stuff I'm not confident in the academy, and that's my plan to attack it. Is wherever I feel weak on, or I'm not confident on, or I'm like, oh crap, I don't know what I'm doing with, well, give me more of that so I can go, I know what I'm doing and I feel better about it. So when it comes to talking people, listen first. Listen. You don't want to just show up and find out what happened, but you're too nosy in the book and all that stuff, writing down information that you're not listening to the story first. Listening to the story will allow you to start coming up with all them clarifying questions and the follow-up questions. And that's when you can start going down, jotting all your notes and getting all those finer details. But let the person get it out of their system first. When I was in the military, what happened, I'll use maybe like I don't know, let's use a car accident, for example. Literally just show up on scene and we have all of our paperwork. And if nobody's been in the military police before, it is very everything, paper trail, and everything has to be done by the book. There is no gray area. It is black or white. Nope, this is good. No, this isn't. So we showed up with all of our interview paperwork, and everybody who was interviewed had to fill out our own witness interview sheet, and you had to initial everything. It was pretty crazy. But it was the same thing. You show up, find out what happened just by generally talking to people. So Joe Schmo crashes into somebody. Hey, Joe Schmo, what happened? And let them tell you the story. And after the story, you go, okay, well, there's some things that either didn't make sense or need to clarify. So I ask on. Okay, and then they would have to write a statement afterwards. Or if I wrote a more detailed statement to be able to put in my report, it'd be like, all right, now I want you to tell me a story. Like exactly that, a story, a detailed story about what happened. And some people would literally just go through the very basics. So, I was driving down the road, I looked down, and the next thing I look up, I rear-ended somebody. Just like, well, you didn't tell me a story. Like, what time was it? Where were you going? How fast were you going? Like that type of stuff. And you get a lot more information out of that, and it makes report writing a lot easier, and it clears up any issues in a report. And you can quickly find out any holes in a story or somebody's line and stuff like that by asking those questions or making sure you follow everything, and it's a thorough, detailed story. And the big thing about interviewing, so if you show up on a scene and you got multiple, whether it be witnesses or people, and you got a couple officers, is officer safety, control the scene, control the subjects and the witnesses. If you're all interviewing each other, or you're not interviewing each other, but you're interviewing your witnesses or whatever, and everybody's got their backs towards each other, well, you can't keep an eye on each other. So one thing we'd always taught in the military was to separate the witnesses or the people. Not only does it make it easier to handle the situation, but when you separate them, you orientate yourself so you all can see each other. So we can see each other's body language, or we can make eye contact with each other. If, hey, I need you over here, or something like that. Or because the last thing you want is somebody, your partner or yourself, getting jumped because you all aren't facing towards each other, and you just left yourself an easy target. And officer safety is the big thing. So just going off that, I guess that's the practical thing. I'll keep it short on that. Is just the basics. Practice talking to people, thinking of good questions that aren't too complex or anything. It's literally just tell me a story, and if something doesn't make sense or something was left out of, what road were you traveling down, or where were you going? How fast do you think you were going? Those are questions that are important. Again, depends on the situation. Before I go on that physical training thing too, I feel pride. I've been pretty sick, but it's nice to have this sense of pride back. I feel a lot more confidence in my life than I have in the past 8 years. I enjoy keeping my boots shined. Like there's pride in all that stuff. Like you're representing an agency, an organization, a profession, your peers, the director. Like there's so much more riding on it than you. I mean, your family's riding on it too. So pride is everything. So I love being able to keep my boots shined and uniforms pressed and like feeling official. It's a sense of feeling good and to have a sense of higher purpose again. That is such a boost to mental health and spiritual health. So if anybody else that is going through any of that kind of stuff and you're tired of working the same old job you've been doing for many, many years, I highly encourage you to consider doing something else. You do not have to spend the rest of your life doing something because, quote unquote, you feel like you have to do so. And the last object here we'll get to is the physical training. I was going to try to get to the gym today to make up for my entire time of not being able to do anything this week, but I'm still a little congested, and the last thing I want to do is go in there and be coughing all over and have people freaking out, and I'd rather just make sure I'm good to go. So I'm going to talk about strength training. The reason I'm talking about strength training is, like I hit on it last week, is this is one of the aspects we don't get a whole lot of. Well, at the academy is the heavy weightlifting, and I love weightlifting. So how do we train for strength? Strength is different than endurance, power, speed, or bodybuilding to add muscle mass, aka hypertrophy. So strength that uses heavy loads, and maximal strength is usually anywhere lifting loads above 80 to 85% of a 1 rep max. You can use different intensities, all right? So again, I think I said it before, is there's 3 ways to get stronger. If you're a weightlifter and you don't get a whole lot of time, if you're at an academy or if you're busy with life in itself, you don't get a whole lot of time. You do not have to lift very heavy every time you're in the weight room. I think about training for your life on the road. You want to make sure you're setting yourself up to be prepared to perform your duties and not run your nervous system into the ground. So that being said, there's 3 ways to get stronger. We'll revisit these. It's lift maximal weight, which is exactly what it sounds like, which poses a high risk of, not a high risk, but a higher risk of injury or running your system into the ground, especially if you have accumulated stress from, in my instance, of being at the academy and all that other stuff. Option number 2 is lift submaximal weights to refusal, which just simply means you leave 1 or 2 reps in the tank. So if I'm doing sets of maybe 3 or 4, that 3rd or 4th is a little bit harder, but I'm not reaching failure on them. And your last one is lifting submaximal weight very fast. The risk versus reward for 2 out of those 3 are beneficial. So options 2 and options 3 provide me to get stronger with less inherent risk of getting hurt. So I'll probably always go through those. There's a time and place for lifting heavy loads, though, which probably is about like every 6 weeks to at least lift something somewhat heavy. When it comes to sets and reps, so when I was working with the hockey team or any athletes, typically we never exceeded 35 repetitions in any given exercise when training for strength, because of trying to prevent overuse or overtraining, which is very prevalent in athletic populations because they got practice, they got training, they got all that type of stuff. So maybe law enforcement is a little bit different. I'm going to treat that same way as like the academy, because we have our physical training, we have classes, we have subject control, we have all that other stuff going on. So it's the same thing. It's a lot of stress on your system, even if it's not purely physical training all the time. And the reps will stay between 1 to 6. So you can go many, many different ways of trying to get that 35 rep cap limit, using 1 to 6 rep limit on your sets. View your training as training movements, not training muscles or doing like bodybuilding. Bodybuilding training while going through the academy is probably the worst thing a recruit could be doing for themselves, because you're adding a shit ton of volume already on an enormous amount of volume, and you're just adding more muscle damage to yourself, more stress that your body has to recover from. And last thing you want to do is go do a bodybuilding session on, say, like a Saturday, and then go to PT on Monday, and you can't do it because you hurt so much, or you can't do any of your skill-based training because your muscles are so sore. That is the primary reason I wouldn't do any type of that stuff while I was in the academy. Keeping a training session very simple. So here's like an example strength training session that maybe I would use if I'm an Olympic lifter, so I like using cleans and stuff like that. But for somebody else who doesn't use something like that, keep it simple. Use all these movements. All right. So we do a sprint, we do a jump, we do a squat, an upper body pull, an upper body push, and a lower body hinge. That's your could be like a deadlift, but like your hip lifts, your single leg RDLs, the double leg RDLs, that type of stuff. As long as you got all those movement categories in there, you'll be fine. And that's just the the minimum. If you want to add your extra assistance or auxiliary stuff, that's fine. But those sprints, jumps, squats, hinges should be the priority of your workout. Get in, get it done, and get a good training session in so you can make sure you're not losing anything while you're at the academy. So an example with this would be for sprints. Keep everything simple here. 3 sets of 15 yards. 15 yards works primarily more on acceleration than pure speed work. We'll progress up to that. We're going through the academy. We're going through acceleration right now. It's just because acceleration is so important, more so than speed initially. When you get a good strength base and your acceleration is really good, then you can start implementing more speed work because then you'll get faster as you go. So after you get through with those 3 sets of your speed work, plenty of rest in between, then I go with a tri-set, which just means three exercises. So here's where I do my heavy loaded squat. So I'll use a back squat. After you do your squat, you do a squat jump. Science for that is called post-activation potentiation, PAP. So when I use a heavier loaded exercise, such as a squat, then I'll be able to jump higher after I do that exercise because I recruit more muscle fiber. And then the third exercise would be a pull-up. Pull-ups are harder than dumbbell rows or TRX rows. So that's why I have pull-ups with that block. Everything is 5 sets on this first block. So squats, 5 sets of 3 repetitions. Squat jumps, 5 sets of 3 repetitions. And then we got pull-ups, 5 sets of anywhere from 6 to 8 repetitions. Plenty of rest in between. Again, we're training strength. Nothing crazy. I'm not doing the Tabata type stuff. Again, I'm not getting strength training, a heavy dose of it at the academy. So this is my priority. I want to make sure I'm taking my time with it. I'm getting good fundamentals in and I'm training my movement. Second block, we do a lower body hinge. We do the single leg RDL. And I'm going to do it with an overhead press. We do plenty of push-ups. Plenty of push-ups. So I'm not going to be doing any type of bench pressing, incline bench pressing. Also with our pushing, we get plenty of it when it comes to our subject control stuff and rolling on the grounds with people. So from a needs analysis from something like that, the need to do bench pressing is completely thrown out the window. Overhead pressing, I like this mainly for training overhead. You get to the posterior side, so your posterior delts, you also get more incorporation from the upper body posterior chain. But another big aspect is the mobility portion of it. So if I'm doing push-ups, shoulders start rounding forward, and that's already prevalent in the law enforcement population as it is. It's just going to make more issues for me down the road. So consider that if you're doing, consider that when you're doing your own training. Boy, I should have done that in the first place. My voice sounds way different now. Accessory work. So if you've got time afterwards, here's something I like doing is farmer's carries with a trap bar deadlift, 3 sets of 25 to 50 yards. And then this is where we hit our bent over rows and we go higher reps for more volume on the posterior side, for your upper back. So that's what I mean by posterior side, your back side. You can't see any of that stuff back there. Again, we don't do a whole lot of that stuff. Well, in the academy, a lot of our training is anterior dominant. So a lot of pushing, that type of stuff. So push-ups, I guess that's the most amount of pushing we do right now. We do have weights and all that stuff. I don't know when we'll actually start implementing that stuff. But I'm sure as we do, a lot of my training is going to kind of change around that. But that's pretty much how I'm looking at going things through the academy. Keep it simple. I think we got one of our guys who still goes to the gym in the morning, so he gets up very early. He goes to the gym and then comes and does PT at the academy and then goes through it all day. Probably why sometimes he looks like he's gonna fall asleep during class. But he's also younger. All right, so I'm 35. I think this guy's not even 20 yet. So, youth, I miss it. But that's pretty much what week 2 is like. Being out with COVID absolutely sucked. I missed being not able to participate in a lot of the hands-on stuff. But fortunately, because of the military side, I have no quells about missing out on dealing with an AR and all that type of stuff. I'll pick it up rather easily. I'm not sure what's coming up on next week. Again, I'll try to have somebody else come on here so they can talk about the experience for them, or if there's another police officer out there who's actually working on the force who would like to come on, I'd love to do that as well. But I don't know what's going on with week 3. So in this world of COVID, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to probably get off here soon. My kid's screaming, but in the world of COVID, things change so fast now. So we can have a block of instructions set for a day, and then it'll literally change before the day even starts because, well, anybody who's here is a law enforcement officer, you get called and you have to testify in court and stuff like that. Those are their priorities, so we got to work with what we got to do. So I don't exactly know what's coming next week. I'm just going to go assume a lot more skills training with the subject control of firearms and a lot more getting to know the criminal law side of things here in Michigan. I guess that being said, I'm going to have to jump off here. If anybody has any questions, comments, or they have any other advice they would like to have other people know, please let me know. I'd love to get that information out to other people. Or if you're listening to this and would like to be a guest on this show, I'd love to have you on, because I am just going through the academy myself. I don't have all that experience. And if you're a law enforcement officer and you go, you know what, I've been through all this stuff and here's how it's progressed throughout the years and here's how I use it on a day-to-day kind of thing, I'd love to have you on to talk about that for other people and why it's so important to get good at those skills of dealing with people, knowing your firearms, and knowing how to deal with handling people when they're not cooperative, because you're going to come across that in the street. And if you're not taking care of that now or not putting the time to take it seriously, you're not only going to hurt yourself, but you're probably going to hurt your partners out there and give the law enforcement profession a bad name. And we don't want to do that. So again, anybody who listens, thank you. I appreciate it. Please like, share. If you want to be on here, please reach out to me on theroadlaw@gmail.com. Have a very great weekend, and I will see you guys next week. Thank you for listening to On the Road, a law enforcement journey. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or would like to be on the show, email me at ontheroadlaw@gmail.com. And please like, share this podcast. Thank you.